The story begins by introducing a girl named Min Jae who had recently transferred to a new school with the hope of making friends in her
That
previous
color looks
school.
amazing
Min Jae
on
had
you.
been lonely and
I
didn't have
love
any
it.
friends when
I think
she
this is the
introduced
one.
herself
It's
at the
perfect.
new school. She initially had a pessimistic outlook, but to her surprise the other students applauded her during a break. Min Jae felt optimistic about making her first friend, however her efforts seemed in vain as no one noticed her, which made her a bit discouraged. After some
We
time,
need to go
a
now.
girl named
1 second, I'm
Ji-won and her
confirming.
friends approached Min Jae expressing their interest in becoming her friends.
need to
Min
go
Jae
now.
couldn't believe that the popular girls
1 second,
in
I'm
school were
confirming.
inviting her to be their friend. Min Jae managed to strike up a conversation with them because she had previously watched a tutorial video on how to communicate with others. As they walked together, Mej began to feel happy because she was finally becoming known to a few students. Then Ji-won introduced her male friend to Min Jae.
Thank you all
However,
for being
when
here this evening.
she
I am
saw a guy
excited
named
to share our
Wai-jun,
vision
she
for
felt
the
a bit
future.
self-conscious because Wai-jun looked very handsome and was also popular in school. When Min Jae introduced herself, Woon simply nodded, which made her a bit nervous. Later, without saying a word, Jim was about to leave, but his bracelet got caught on Min Jersey's jacket as it
I
was
know
about
what
to
you
fall.
did!
MJ quickly
How
caught
dare
it. She
you! You're
wasn't sure what to
mistaken!
do
Liar!
next, but she
You won't get
remembered
away
from
with
the
it!
tutorial
Stop
video
this!
to always smile, so she smiled and apologized upon hearing this. Ji-won told Benj to forget about it and left. After they left,
This is a disaster. You
Ji-won
had one
explained
job.
that the guy
I warned
named
you
Han
this could
was
happen!
Excuses were
Wai-jun's
ruined.
cousin, and they had different personalities. Wai-jun was always distant while H-jun was the class president and a kind person in music class. Min
To
Jae
good
and
friends and
Wai-jun
great
ended up
food.
sitting next
And
to
many
each
more
other, making the
safe
situation even more
faces.
awkward. Than Min Jae remembered Ji-won's sociable nature, which encouraged her to try and make friends. Min Jae gathered the urge to start a conversation with Wai-jun. However, when she tried to greet him, Wai-jun immediately put on his headset, causing Min Jae to give up on her attempt.
Wow,
shortly
look
after,
at that!
Min
It's
Jae
so
found
close! Wait, it's
herself in the
turning!
school office.
Bye.
The teacher there encouraged her to enjoy her new school. The teacher also mentioned that there would be another new student arriving soon. When Min Jae saw the new student's profile, she was surprised because the new student had the same name as her. Their photos were different. Min Jae still wore glasses, while the other Min Jae, whom we'll call Yumin, looked very fashionable. However, the teacher mistakenly thought that Min Jae was Yumin. This made Min Jae wonder of having friends was because they thought she was Waimi, because Een was a social media influencer with a large following in the school clinic. Min Jae was torn because she had friends now, which made her happy. However, she was also afraid that her true identity would be exposed someday and she would lose everything. After some time, H-jun came to meet her. H-jun already knew everything and reassured Min Jae that he wouldn't tell anyone her secret. In class, Min Jae was approached by her friends who praised her for having many followers. However, they were referring to Yan's account, not Min Jae's. When she wanted to confess the truth that all just wanted to be followed by Meji. Seeing this, Meji said she wouldn't open her media social today. As Meji was leaving school, Agent approached her and offered some help with a few things. She thanked him and thought of him as a kind person. However, Han told her that he helped her out of pity. In the evening, Min Jae appeared sad because she couldn't be as popular as Yumin. This made her somewhat frustrated because she shared the same name with the popular girl, and she knew that Yen would eventually enter the school and she might be forgotten soon. Sometime later, Min Jae was about to buy some candy, but Wai-jun suddenly appeared and took the candy from her. They were then seen talking outside the store. Jun had misunderstood Min Jae, thinking she was up to something bad, so he prevented her from buying the candy, which he thought was medicine. Then he asked Min Jae's condition. In response, Mej asked Wai-jun if he had ever felt like wanting to disappear from this world. Upon hearing that, Jun replied that he wouldn't think about it and would keep on living. The next day, a new student arrived in their class who turned out to be Yumi. However, Min Jae was surprised when she saw Yumi's appearance because Yumin dressed like a bookworm. On the other hand, Yumi was also surprised that there was someone with a name like hers in the class, and it annoyed her a bit. In the restroom, Min Jae gathered the courage to talk to Yumin. She complimented Yen for being very beautiful and having many friends, so Min Jae realized that Een intentionally dressed that way. However, before Yumin could respond, the school bell rang and she didn't want to talk to Meji anymore as there was nothing to discuss in the classroom. Meji was seen joking around with Ji-won. Screw. Seeing this, Waimi imagined herself in the past when she used to be with them putting on makeup together. However, that was in the past, and now Yumin considered friends to be worthless. Shortly after, Min Jae secretly met with Een. After noticing that the situation was quite private, Een immediately pulled Min Jae into the school storage room. There, Min Jae said she wouldn't bother Yumin anymore. After following her friend's mistaken beliefs, she confided in Yumin, explaining that her friends thought Min Jae was her. After hearing Min Jae's story, Ng suggested that Min Jae should tell the truth so she wouldn't regret it later. However, Min Jae didn't want her enjoyable days to end just like that. She felt happy when she pretended to be Yumin because she got attention from her friends, and why Min didn't seem to mind, and she continued pretending to be a shy Student Ymi also warned Min Jae that if she accepted the friend requests they might see Yumin's photos. On the other hand, Hae Jum and Wai Jum were sitting together. Hae Jun suddenly asked Wai Jumin if he was interested in Mej with a hint of nervousness. Wai Jun replied that he wasn't interested in Min Jae. Sometime later Ji-won came to meet them and asked what they were talking about. Jun told her about the rumor regarding Wai Jun being close to MJ. Wai Jun became increasingly annoyed as Ji-won asked about it again. Then GW1 invited them to a welcome party for Meji as the new student. Not long after they were at a karaoke place. After having some funny, Jun asked Min Jae to sing a song since it was her welcome party. This panicked Min Jae a bit because she had never been to a karaoke place before. On the other hand, Jun encouraged Jun to sing, but Jun replied that he wouldn't sing in front of others. After finding a suitable song, Min Jae prepared herself to sing. She also didn't worry too much because after karaoke she intended to tell them the truth. While Mej sang, they were all amazed by her mysterious voice and they applauded to boost Mej's confidence. After her performance, Mej excused herself to go to the restroom. Jun, who noticed it, followed her. Some time later Min Jae came out of the restroom and Jun gave her a drink. He complimented Min Jae's appearance during her singing performance, suggesting that he might be slightly interested in her. Meanwhile, inside the karaoke room they were having fun. Ji-won and her female friends returned and Min Jae followed them back to the group. Hearing this, Min Jae felt like it was the end of their friendship. However, they noticed that Min Jae's account had no posts. See this, Min Jae became curious about why Min had deleted all of her photos. Not long after, Jun and Jun were seen talking together. Jun reminded Jun about their past incidents which seemed to involve a disagreement. However, Jun pretended not to care. The following day they found themselves in the music class. In that room, Min Jae couldn't help but gaze at Jun. Eventually they started a conversation that seemed a bit awkward. Later on, Jun kindly offered MJ his earphone so they could enjoy music together, even though they still appeared a bit uncomfortable. At the same time, Ji-won and her friends were busy taking selfies. During this moment, Ji-won realized that Eun was blocking her view from behind, so she politely asked Eun to move over a bit. Ymi reluctantly complied, pretending to be a shy student. Once they finished taking photos, Ymi walked towards them and accidentally stepped on Ji-won's shoe. However, she quickly acted like a timid student and apologized. Not long after, Yumin met Min Jae on the school rooftop. Min Jae expressed her gratitude to Eun for helping her out. However, Ymi advised Min Jae not to spend too much time with them as it could be risky. Yumin also noticed that Min Jae was quite studious, therefore she suggested that Min Jae should consult her before making any decisions. Before leaving, Min Jae asked for help once more, pleading with Eun to tutor her because her grades were not doing well. The next day, Meji was seen hanging out with her friends, and Ji-won asked Min Jae about the agency that accepted her because she had sung at one before. This question left Min Jae feeling even more confused. When she looked at Ymi signaled her to stay quiet. Later that evening, Min Jae was returning from shopping when she unexpectedly ran into Eun. They exchanged glances which made them both a bit embarrassed, causing them to hide briefly. However, they gathered the courage to approach each other and decided to walk home together. Eun began to show interest in Min Jae, but he was still too shy to openly express it. The following day, Min Jae and her friends got together for a physical education class. Ji-won noticed Min Jae's shoes and was surprised because she also wanted a pair. However, they were too expensive for her. Ji-won forgot the brand of the shoes and asked Mej about it. Mej, who wasn't very knowledgeable about fashion, honestly admitted that her shoes weren't very expensive and she didn't know the brand. This led them to assume that Min Jae's shoes might be fake, which made Min Jae feel a little sad. However, out of nowhere, Eun appeared and mentioned that he was wearing the same shoes as Min Jae. Then one of Jun's friends arrived and jokingly asked if they were secretly dating, which shifted their attention away from Min Jae's shoes. Shortly after, Min Jae and Ymi were inside the school storage room having a conversation. While talking, they heard someone approaching. Min Jae quickly hid, and it turned out to be Jun. Just as Yumin was about to leave, Han stopped her and expressed his desire to join their secret group. Eventually they formed a group, and Han shared with them that on the school forum there were discussions about Min Jae wearing fake shoes. As a result, whenever Min Jae walked through the school hallway she would be stared at. Was skepticism by other students. Back in the classroom, Ji-won, who had seen Min Jae earlier, immediately apologized for her earlier remarks during physical education. However, MJ didn't hold it against her. During this time, Mej overheard what other students were saying and felt sorry for Ji-won, who was always kind-hearted. Sometime later, Ymi received a social media notification in which Ji-won tagged Yumin's account and make comments that made it seem like she was always apologizing, which make Yumin puzzled. On the other hand, Jun was observed gathering information from Ji-won's friend named Dal. Using his charm, Jun obtained information from D about the issues between Ji-won and Mej. The following day, Ji-won was surprised to See her post being shared by Een, where Een advised her not to talk to her anymore. Guan initially thought it was Min Jae and was a bit shocked because Min Jae, who appeared innocent, had said something like that. Meanwhile, Waimi was seen smiling after reposting Ji1's story shortly after Mej approached her as they had plans to meet up. Waimi had been helping MJ understand fashion better, and she even suggested character t-shirts that would suit her while they were at a cafe. Min Jae looked happy because it was her first time visiting one. Seeing her happiness, Waimi asked if she had never been to a cafe before. This question made Min Jae appear a bit down because even though she was considered popular at school, she had never been to a cafe. Noticing Min Jae's sadness, Yumin quickly took a photo of her and encouraged her to change her profile picture elsewhere. Wai Jun saw MJ's profile picture and planned to send her a message. However, his plan was forwarded when Jun rod and caught him hiding something. Aun also had a secret that he was the one posting anonymously on their school forum. The next day, they all gathered and discussed someone to had a crush on but was too shy to admit it. GW1 mentioned that she had become friends with Jun and Jun, but everyone found it hard to get to know them as Jun always kept his distance. Hearing this, Min Jae understood that Jun behaved that way with everyone, making her doubt the possibility of becoming friends with him. As they entered the school, Mej witnessed Jun being scolded by a teacher for dressing like a college student. She commanded that Jun's attire was too casual, causing problems with the teachers. Mej suggested that Jun occasionally wear the school uniform correctly. Sometime later, Mej was woken up by her friend, and when she looked towards the door she saw Jun dressed neatly. It reminded Meji of her previous advice to Jun about dressing properly and make her happy. Jun met Min Jae and handed her a music cassette showing that he was following her suggestion to wear the school uniform correctly. Not long after, Min Jae came into the classroom wearing the t-shirt she had purchased with Een Chan, who noticed it made a comment about Min Jae's clothing, making her feel a little embarrassed about her choice. However, the responses from the other students were different, as it turned out that some of the students liked Min Jae's t-shirt. Jun also mentioned that the clothing suited Min Jae well and was quite expensive. Eventually, Min Jae, who had initially felt down, regained her confidence thanks to her friend's support. The next day, Min Jae met Jun and gave him a gift, as he had given her one before. She gave him a movie ticket, but just one. Upon seeing this, Jun suggested that they go together after school. Ji1 asked Min Jae to go with her to the clothing store Min Jae had mentioned, but Min Jae couldn't because she already had plans with Jun. Upon hearing this, Ji1 said that there might be a chance that Jun was starting to like Jae, and she was willing to help Min Jae in this regard. The following day at school, Min Jae received a message from Ji1 saying that she wanted to talk to her. Meanwhile, Jun and Jun were entering school. Ji1 noticed that Jun seemed different and asked if he was happy now. However, Jun replied that he was still the same as always. Aun sensed that Jun was lying and got annoyed with him. At the same time, Yumi met Jae and Mej talked about her dilemma between friendship and love. This reminded Yumin of her past experience where she had also faced difficulties with friendship and love. Min Jae then expressed her preference for being friends with Ji1. She then gave her movie ticket to Ji1 so that she could go on a date with Jun. Yumin got angry with Min Jae, believing that Min Jae was deceiving her own feelings. Then made a plan and called Jun. Not long after, Min Jae surprised Jun by showing up accompanied by Jun. Before watching the movie, they had a shootout game and Min Jae played her sports talent even though she wasn't strong academically. Afterward, they watched the movie. Aun acted affectionate with Min Jae, making her uncomfortable and sparking jealousy in Jun. As they were about to leave, Jun invited Ji1 to go home with him. Ji1 was initially confused, but Jun quickly took her hand and led her away. At the bus stop, Ji1 realized that Jun had done this deliberately. Jun casually mentioned that Ji1 didn't actually like Jun but was pretending. He also suggested that Ji1 didn't like Min Jae. Ji1 denied it and told Jun not to act childish before leaving. Aun warned Guan not to cross the line. Elsewhere, Yun and Min Jae were seen talking while walking home. Min Jae asked if Jun actually wanted to ask her out. Jun then thought to himself that it might be true because Min Jae was someone he could talk to laugh with. MJ also vote that she was the only one who could make him laugh, but neither of them expressed these feelings. As Min Jae was about to leave, Jun gathered the courage to say that he was happy Min Jae had come to the meeting. The following day at school, the teacher announced that exams would be happening soon. The teacher mistakenly congratulated Min Jae, thinking she had received a perfect score, but it was actually Yen who had achieved that because Min Jae wasn't very academically inclined. During break time, Min Jae and her friends were headed to the cafeteria, but Ji-won declined the invitation, citing her digestive problems. When stressed upon hearing this, Min Jae decided to bring her some bread to prevent Ji-won from getting sick. Ji-won was a bit puzzled, wondering if Min Jae's kindness was genuine or just an act. After they left, Ji-won started reminiscing about when Min Jae had just transferred to their school. Initially, Ji-won had been confident that Min Jae was an ordinary girl who couldn't outshine her in seeking attention. However, Ji-won began to feel annoyed because all of Min Jae's actions seemed to draw everyone's attention to her. In the evening, Mej was seen studying with Yum Yuman kept scolding her because Meji wasn't fully focused on studying and her grades needed improvement. However, Min Jae struggled to concentrate and her innocent nature made Yumi feel comfortable having her as a study partner. Meanwhile, Ji-won came across Yumin's social media post featuring a picture of Min Jae studying diligently, which received positive responses from her followers. Feeling threatened, Ji-won called her friend Don to meet up. Sometime later they met, and Ji-won knew that Dee had feelings for Jun, so she confided in Dee about a secret they both shared. Ji-won revealed that Jun had asked her out and Min Jae's secret that she was dating Jun. Upon hearing the secret Gon had shared, Dee was somewhat surprised. It seemed like Min Jae was betraying their friendship, but suspected that it was all a lie created by Ji-won out of jealousy towards Min Jae. The following day, Min Jae was chatting with Jun and Jun when she spotted Ji-won and her friends. She approached them and invited them to the cafeteria. However, their response had changed, and Dee mentioned that Min Jae paid too much attention to her male friends and neglected them at the cafeteria. Min Jae ended up eating alone and learned that she had been excluded from Ji-won and her friends' group. Jun arrived and suggested it was time to retaliate, and Jun also joined them. This led to gossip among the other students, speculating that Min Jae had managed to attract both popular boys in their school. Seeing this, Min Jae quickly left. After her departure, Jun insisted it was time to resolve the issue and told Jun not to interfere, but Jun agreed to do whatever was necessary. On the other hand, Meji confided her worries to Ian. Still unaware of the truth, Yuman revealed that their intention was indeed to dislike Min Jae, so she didn't need to blame herself. The next day, Min Jae couldn't stop thinking about her friend suddenly turning against her. Jun noticed Min Jae looking down and tried to console her, which made Min Jae smile happily. It was at this point that Min Jae began to realize her feelings for Jun were growing stronger. An evening, Han approached Ji-won and Dae. He pretended to have feelings for Ji-won and asked her to leave first, leaving her feeling somewhat dejected. When they were alone, Ji-won questioned why Jun was acting this way when she knew Dae had feelings for him. Jun admitted that he had done something similar to Ji-won, where he had lied about being close to Jae. He also mentioned that he had a secret that only he knew. The following day, after their sports class, they were shocked to hear a rumor circulating that Ji-won's old photos had been shared within their school group. This revelation made the students in the class feel deceived because Ji-won hadn't been very attractive in the past. Ji-won felt like her world had crumbled as the secret she had been guarding had been exposed. She began to realize that this was all the work of Jun. Ji-won started reminiscing about her past when she used to be bullied at school. She remembered meeting Jun at the bus stop, which marked the beginning of their friendship. They both shared the desire to be the best. Their friendship had continued to this day, and Ji-won had even managed to become the top student in her class. However, Ji-won believed it had all changed when Min Jae joined their class. Then Jun confronted Jun and assumed he was behind all of this, recalling that Jun had done something similar to him in the past. They used to be best friends, but everything had changed when Jun started spending time with other friends, making Jun feel unimportant. One day, Jun discovered a video on Jun's laptop where they had all sewn for some audition, but no one knew about it in class. It turned out that Jun had played the video on the big screen, and the other students laughed when they saw it. This upset Jun, who immediately stopped the video and was very angry with Jun for embarrassing him. Jun then told Jun that he hadn't changed at all. Jun defended himself, saying he only wanted to help Jun because he didn't know anything. In response, Jun told Jun that he was the one who didn't know anything. Not long after, Jun began to realize that his past actions were merely for his amusement, as he could uncover other people's secrets. However, meeting Min Jae changed things. Initially, Ha-jum had wanted to play with Min Jae's secrets, but over tea he began to be acknowledged by Min Jae and Yumin, and this made Jun realize that his friends valued him, and Min Jae's sincerity and innocence had also influenced him. In a secret storage room, Jun told Yen that he did the action to make everyone angry with Ji-won, and also because Yumin disliked him. Meji arrived and asked why Jun did that to Ji-won, who was her friend. Min Jae considered Jun a good friend but was also afraid he might do the same thing to her. In the evening, Jun been waiting for me expressed that he was in a bad mood and Meister but me Jay couldn't find words to respond as why June was about to leave. Medj stopped him and invited him to go to the karaoke to improve his mood. At the karaoke Jay realized that June didn't like to sing, but he told her about his past and how Han had once annoyed him. Han was afraid of being laughed at, which is why he promised not to sing in front of others. After hearing Why June's confession, me Jade tried to cheer him up with a song. Slowly Why June began to smile and even sang in front of Mean Jay, which made her reminisce about their time together. After he finished singing, Mean Jay intended to reveal her secret but changed her mind out of fear of being disliked by June. Suddenly June confessed his feelings to Medj, saying he enjoyed the days spent with her. This left Mean Jay confused because she hadn't been honest about her secret with Han, yet she then asked him for some time to think about it. In the evening, Medj called Yumin and excited Ly told her that Why June had asked her out. She felt happy and knew that she couldn't have done it without Why Me's help, so she thanked Yumin sincerely. The next day, Why Jum and his friend Kim Song walked over to Mean Jay's class. Kimson asked about Ji-won's whereabouts, but Mean Jay hadn't seen her either. Yun entrusted a gift and some food to Mean Jay to leave on Ji-won's desk. Later, when Han arrived, Kim's tried to call him, but Han left because their relationship was still strained. Meanwhile, Ji-won was talking to her friend, who encouraged her to get to know a popular guide to improve her image and avoid being underestimated. Shortly after, Ji-won asked Mean Jay for a private conversation. Mean Jay began by noting that Ji-won had changed. She hoped they could still be friends like before. In response, Ji-won thanked Mean Jay for being nice to her and then mentioned her upcoming blind date, which involved someone famous from Mean Jay's previous school. Medj was puzzled because she hadn't received permission from Why Me to answer the invitation, so she made an excuse and said she would check with her friend first. Later on, Mean Jay met Yumin and inquired about someone famous from her previous school. This unexpectedly angered Yumin, as she had negative memories associated with that person. Medj was left confused because Yen suddenly acted distant and unfriendly. Afterward, Why Me regretted her harsh words, realizing she shouldn't have hurt Mean Jay. However, she couldn't help it because that name had triggered painful memories from her past. The following day, news about Mean Jay and Yunin had spread throughout the school, and it seemed like all the students were distancing themselves from Mean Jay. Who had heard about it, decided to take Mean Jay out of her class. When they were alone, the atmosphere was awkward. June told Mean Jay that she could talk to him whenever she was ready to share her problems. He also mentioned with a smile that when they met again, he would ask her to stop being friends. Meanwhile, Ji-won met with June and he apologized for his past actions, but Ji-won was still skeptical, thinking there might be another motive. However, this time June genuinely regretted what he had done and promised not to hurt anyone again. He also encouraged Ji-won to stop obsessing over being number one. This reminded Ji-won of her conversation with Yun and would confess that Mean Jay had ruined his career. Hearing this, Ji-won finally realized Mean Jay's true nature, but just as she was about to show a photo, she hesitated, feeling that Yene might not be trustworthy. Not long after, Yumin isolated herself for a few days. When she finally left her room, she found a food basket and a letter, both from Mean Jay. Yumi was touched by Mean Jay's concern and encouragement. On the other hand, Mean Jay continued to visit Yan's house to deliver food, and they finally met again. Medj was seen crying because she didn't know what had happened to her friend, and she urged Hume to return to school with her beauty, wanting to prove that the rumors were not Yin's fault and that Wymi was the victim. Sometime later, Ji-won was on the phone with Mean Jay seeking her assistance. On another occasion, Ji-won encountered Yunin, who turned out to have an angry and manipulative personality, leaving Ji-won frightened. Fortunately, Mean Jay and Een arrived just in time to help. Yunin also meant Why-me and accused her of ruining his career. However, Een felt she hadn't done anything wrong and clarified that it wasn't her fault. Eugene explained that such actions were normal in a relationship, but Een firmly told him to stop and reveal she had recorded their conversation. She also warned him not to bother them again. The following day, Een and Mean Jade were preparing for school, and Yuming seemed to have regained her confidence as they walked together. Jay noticed June walking alone and approached him. She had decided to confess the truth, admitting to deceiving her friends, including Yun, by pretending to be the popular Memj instead of the bookworm Memj. In response, Yun asked her to stop being friends, and she thanked him for everything. Ready to leave, however, June stopped her and revealed that he no longer considered her a friend but as his girlfriend, which make them look happy in the classroom. Mean Jay also confessed the TRU of to her friends, and Yun decided to delete her social media account, even if it meant losing many followers, to lead a normal student life. Sometime later, Mean Jay and June were seen spending time together as an official couple. More or lesson of the story: it's better to be yourself and have genuine friends who accept you for who you are, rather than pretending to be someone else and not understanding anything about the clothes we wear. Music